This is CBC Vancouver News.
The drug dealers are now brazenly conducting business on the rooftop patio of St. Paul's Hospital.
Claims of drug use and drug dealing at a BC hospital, but some staff say the allegations are inaccurate.
It's deeply disappointing to see the rhetoric and the false narrative that continues to be spread.
And
I'm alleging that there's a conflict of interest.
We are asking the Auditor General to undertake a review of MNP's involvement in commercial vehicle grants.
the BC government asks for an investigation into allegations a company administering some clean energy programs was soliciting kickbacks. Plus,
I know I can't rely on the sun, so I knew this was going to be the case.
a moment in history we didn't see here. More on the solar eclipse in other parts of the world. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. BC's health minister says he plans to bring in one set of rules around illicit drug use at all BC healthcare facilities. That comes as the opposition claims people are using and dealing drugs inside a Vancouver hospital. Michelle Gassoub has our top story.
The drug dealers are now brazenly conducting business on the rooftop patio of St. Paul's Hospital.
BC United making explosive allegations about drug use at St. Paul's Hospital.
A concerned nurse says, quote, "We know they are drug dealers, and yet they come and go."
Now the province says it will move to standardize the policies banning illicit drug use at hospitals across all health authorities.
There won't be one Vancouver Coastal Health Policy or Fraser Health Policy or Island Health Policy. There will be one policy, and we're bringing in a task force to put that in place.
BC United claims nurses have described drug use and trafficking, specifically on a rooftop garden at the hospital. Some who work at St. Paul's say the allegations being made in the legislature are inaccurate, though extra security has been brought in for the outdoor space.
As an addiction medicine physician, I can tell you I've never walked through a cloud of fentanyl. It's stories like this that do a complete disservice to our patients and the healthcare providers who are elbows deep in this work and have been for almost a decade now.
St. Paul's is home to a unique peer-run overdose prevention site. The BC Nurses Union says it supports that kind of measure and hopes frontline nurses are on the task force.
We believe in harm reduction, but harm reduction should not come at the cost of harming a nurse or any other healthcare worker. And so, it's an opportunity for us to look at the situation critically.
The province recently announced it had hired 320 relational security officers to help keep health workers safe. Measures BC United says aren't enough.
Putting a task force in place to reinforce rules that they're not enforcing will do nothing. The fact of the matter is that people are continuing to use drugs, illicit drugs, inside the hospital, placing other people at risk.
But some healthcare workers say hospitals need to be kept out of politics.
It's deeply disappointing to see the rhetoric and the false narrative that continues to be spread.
Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
the BC government has now ordered a probe into allegations that a company administering some clean energy programs was in a conflict of interest. Edison Motors, a merit-based business that builds electric semi-trucks used for logging, had been looking for government aid but felt shut out. As Mira Baines reports, it alleges the same company that administers grants was offering them services to help write their application.
This controversy over alleged kickbacks in doling out clean energy grants has been exploding since last week. The company MNP, at the center of the allegations, is suspended from administering 2 Clean BC grants.
Some of you may have seen that we were in the news today as part of a corruption scandal, and I would like to...
This TikTok video made the rounds over the weekend and amplified allegations that the accounting firm MNP was soliciting kickbacks. Edison Motors builds plug-in hybrid semi-trucks used for logging, but failed to earn a grant.
This is a grant for people innovating commercial trucks. We're the only ones building commercial trucks. We should apply for this grant. We didn't get the grant.
Edison went public about a firm called MNP, which administers clean energy grants, but in some cases also acts as a consultant to help write up applications. The dual roles have the merit-based company asking a lot of questions after it failed to receive grants.
But I'm alleging that there's a conflict of interest, and we felt pressured into signing up with them if we wanted to receive any grants. On some of the grants, the lowest amount it would have been on one grant would have been $200,000 to write a grant. Other companies were charging $5,000 to $15,000.
MNP says the allegation that one of its teams in BC worked on both the application process as both the administrator and grant application consultant on the Clean BC grant program are false and misleading. The minister in charge has asked for an investigation into the allegations against MNP, but wouldn't reveal what new information led to the call.
This weekend, we received new information that's raised further questions. And as a result, we are asking the Auditor General to undertake a review of MNP's involvement in commercial vehicle grants.
The Comptroller General has also been asked to investigate allegations against MNP that it was soliciting kickbacks for consulting on applications were raised twice last week in the legislature and the company Edison Motors about a month ago.
Now, British Columbians see explosive allegations of corruption that show that carbon tax kickbacks are flowing to NDP-appointed consultants through 20% success fees.
The opposition BC United and Conservative Party of BC are questioning why the province hasn't asked for a criminal investigation. Mira Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
Some parents in Surrey are asking the province for more funding for an early learning program.
It's been a great experience for my daughter. She's been able to interact with other kids and just learn, the basics of education.
Strong Start is a free drop-in that helps kids 5 and younger with language, cognitive, as well as social skills. It serves about 3,000 children. The Surrey School District says it may have to cut the program, though, because of a funding crunch. It claims provincial funding has been frozen since 2008. Education Minister Rachna Singh says, we are aware of funding pressures and continue our commitment to working with the district to identify solutions. She adds, though, the decision to continue this valued program will be made by the district, not the province. The government does say a new transit-oriented development is slated for Saanich. The province has bought 2 parcels of land near transit hubs in the uptown area. It says it wants to ensure people can get affordable homes near public transit. Plans for the site are still in the early works, but the government says that will be done along with Saanich City Hall. Members of the Haida Nation have approved a landmark agreement with the province. Under this deal, Victoria will recognize and affirm that the Haida Nation has title to the entire archipelago. The agreement will not affect private property, though, and highways and public infrastructure will stay under provincial mandate. The BC government says negotiations between industry, the province, and the Haida will tackle land use sector by sector. It's becoming more evident that impacts of COVID-19 stretch well beyond actually being sick with that disease. What's emerged most frequently could affect hundreds of thousands of Canadians. As Belpuri reports, early research suggests a concerning percentage of survivors have been left with a chronic respiratory condition called pulmonary fibrosis.
And I'll wash this.
Until recently, the simplest of tasks was a challenge. 2 years ago, Farrell Ekman had COVID-19. She was in hospital 3 months, mostly in ICU, intubated or on a ventilator. The wife, mother of 2, recovered but needed oxygen to get up and move around.
All the doctors, when they had been looking at my scans and seeing what it looked like on the surface of my lungs, they described it as a broken glass kind of appearance.
Ekman was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good, thank you.
Pulmonary fibrosis is scarring, which causes lung tissue to get thick and stiff.
Here there are extra bits of white and dense white bits, and this is the scarring that happens after COVID.
That scarring makes it hard to absorb oxygen into the bloodstream.
We're trying to learn more and more about risk factors that lead some people to end up with scarring after an infection like COVID, and other people to kind of get over it without too much of an issue. And I think we don't really know the answer to that, and the answer to that it usually lies somewhere in genetics.
A number of international research teams have identified an escalating rate of pulmonary fibrosis. One study found almost 45% of severe COVID-19 survivors have developed it. That's a significantly higher rate than among the general public. Before the pandemic, there were an estimated 30,000 cases in Canada, but the COVID-related pulmonary fibrosis is just surfacing now, so there are no exact numbers to report. Specialists, however, believe worldwide studies accurately reflect cases here.
I've seen a fair number, most of the time, so I would say probably several dozen.
Definitely there's more fibrotic lung disease in the COVID pneumonia patients, but not everyone. And in some people, it can level. And in some people, I've had people on oxygen for 2 years who have now come off oxygen. So you can get improvement.
Other than daily oxygen, there's no other treatment for post-COVID pulmonary fibrosis. Farrell Ekman needs it every day.
I don't know if I'll ever fully recover. I'm functioning, which is tremendous, but I could possibly be dealing with this for the rest of my life.
Do you want to eat? Maybe around 6?
As vaccines help to make COVID less severe, it's hoped cases of fibrosis will also lessen. But for now, it's a major concern for survivors and those who treat them. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, the South Coast and much of BC was totally not the place to be to see today's total solar eclipse. But amid the rain and the cloud, plenty of people still flocked to UBC and the Planetarium Space Center to try.
Well, we can't see a whole lot, unfortunately.
Having lived in the Pacific Northwest for a while, I know I can't rely on the sun, so I knew this was going to be the case.
I'm a bit jealous of my family in Montreal who is seeing it in full view today.
It would have been nice to experience it.
We were supposed to get a 28% partial eclipse with the moon blocking part of the sun. And that's still happening, but it's pouring rain here, of course, so we're going to just make the best of it.
In 600 million years, we won't see a solar eclipse anymore because the moon is moving away from the Earth.
You can share it globally with everybody in the world. It's always a good feeling to have a shared experience, and this is one of our shared experience with my son and with the world.
While the eclipse might have been a bust here in our province, in eastern Canada, it was quite the event, depending on your location. The CBC science reporter Anand Ram shows you the day.
This breathtaking dying of the light captivated people across the entire continent. Early birds crawling in traffic just to get a good spot.
I'm trying to have a celestial experience, I'm trying to something touch my soul.
We have some badminton sets in the back, some... what do we buy?
Pickleball.
Pickleball.
Crowds gathered across the eclipse's path from Mexico to the Motor Speedway in Indianapolis to the mists of Niagara Falls, all for a few minutes of darkness in daytime.
It's one of the great natural wonders of the world, one of the great celestial events of the universe, same place, same time, once in a lifetime.
And though the clouds over the falls dampened the look of totality, the sound? A crowd still awestruck.
It was really cool because you knew it was just the mid-afternoon, but then it felt like it was 8 o'clock at night because it was so dark and it was colder.
In Montmorency, Quebec, as darkness descended, spirits lifted.
I feel special because we've been driving for 6 hours to get here.
And in New Brunswick, 1,000 years since the last one, a crowd left speechless.
What does it look like?
Look like it's an eclipse.
Looks like the third rock on the moon.
Yeah. The full effect was brief across the continent, just a few minutes, but a rare chance because even though the whole thing is about the sun being blocked, it's also one of the best chances to study it.
There are so many people that are engaging with this eclipse, doing professional science. Why the sun's corona, the outermost atmosphere, is hotter than the surface, how the solar wind, how that is born, and even how animals behave in response to the eclipse.
But above all, for scientists and citizens alike, it was a moment to savor the moment.
This really, I hope, gives us all pause as we ponder what I like to call our place in space, our relationship to the cosmos.
A chance in darkness to see the world in a new light. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
Speaking of animals, attention bird lovers, as we told you last week, the Wildlife Rescue Association of BC has been running a contest to decide the best bird in our province. And a new Lord of the Wings has been crowned. 32 of the coolest birds in BC went head-to-head in a March Madness-style bracket, and Anna's hummingbird emerged as the champion. Organizers say the final bracket was a close one, but assured everyone there was no foul play.
And it was actually neck and neck. They only had, I believe, 9 votes difference.
By a beak. On its way to the crown, Anna's hummingbird had to beat the black-capped chickadee, the American kestrel, the ruddy duck, the belted kingfisher, and finally, the mighty raven. Organizers say they're looking forward to running it again next year. Coming up, we begin our series on wildfires and how you can protect yourself this season. Our CBC Health columnist is next. Thanks for joining our commercial-free live stream. A record number of people in Vancouver did their part to help combat climate change over the weekend. They took part in a shoreline cleanup at English Bay. As Karis Hogg explains, the event has also helped some cope with increasing climate anxiety.
Nature really helps me when I'm anxious. Sometimes I need help, and that's it, that's the reason.
He's one of hundreds picking up a pair of tongs Saturday to take part in a shoreline cleanup put on by the Coastal Water Protectors. This year, organizers say the turnout was larger than ever.
I just think a lot more people these days are starting to realize the direction that our environment and climate change is heading towards, and it's not a good direction.
Coastal Water Protectors was created by the BC Métis Federation after community members were looking for more ways to get involved.
Today we have a huge group. It's just growing, and it's not only members of the federation. It's friends, it's family. I met someone today that just saw it on Instagram that had no connection to it at all. Thought it was a worthy cause.
Events like this can also help put environmental anxiety into action.
There's sort of the idea that, again, because this is a group problem that deserves a group solution, there's the idea of thinking not of how am I going to solve all of these challenges by myself, but what can I play a role in creating a more environmentally prosperous and socially equitable world.
The Canadian Counselling and Psychotherapy Association has declared April Environmental Health Month, highlighting Canadians' growing concerns surrounding climate change.
It feels good to be a part of a group of like-minded people who are also concerned. And it's a cleanup, a local beach or a park or something, in hopes of maybe inspiring people to be a little bit more mindful.
When you talk to the young generation, sometimes they feel lost, but I think could be one of the options for them to reconnect themselves with the environment, and they feel good about themselves after the fact.
Connection is a big part of the event, connection to other people and to the environment. And a whole lot of trash is picked up in the process.
I've got everything from a bad smoothie to a mouse trap to marijuana paraphernalia. There's a mouse trap. That was weird.
Weird or not, it's one less piece of garbage that could end up in the ocean.
Yeah, that's airworthy. So yeah.
Karis Hogg, CBC News, Vancouver.
It may be rainy today on the South Coast, but BC's wildfire season has begun. This week, we're looking at what's being done to prepare for the fires and learn from lessons past from last year's fire season. Our health columnist, Dr. Melissa Lem, joins us now. Thanks for being here. You've worked in northern BC and during past wildfire seasons. In that time, what stood out to you?
I have. Well, I've worked extensively in northern BC and in Yellowknife, which was just evacuated last summer during the wildfires. And I've been there during smoke events where you step outside and it's like you're in front of a smoky campfire blasting in your face. And certainly I see lots of health impacts on the people who work there. So for example, I see kids coming in with asthma exacerbations, people with worse mental health, depression and anxiety, and also people with chronic diseases like heart and lung disease, and also outdoor workers, including firefighters, coming in sicker. And I will mention there are real impacts on healthcare workers too. So I was meant to work in Yellowknife at the end of last summer, and my stint there was canceled at the very last minute. But for a while, I thought I was going to have to go and leave my family behind. So there are real impacts on a large number of people within the healthcare system and within our patients as well.
You mentioned a large swath of people there. Is there any group that you saw, and in general, particularly the most vulnerable?
Mostly people with chronic heart and lung conditions, and there's a lot of evidence showing that people with lung disease like COPD and asthma have worse exacerbations. And we also see more episodes of abnormal heart rhythms and also heart attacks coming in during wildfire smoke events.
How many of those, you mentioned mental health, how many people mentioned that feeling of just, I mean, it was bad enough here on the South Coast where there were fires that were close, but not evacuation close. What about that weight that people were feeling?
Something that I really see is not necessarily people saying I'm concerned about the smoke necessarily, but something that I do see is just higher rates of people calling into my office, coming into my office with anxiety and depression. And the reason is likely that they can't, for example, head outside and improve their health in that way and relieve their stress in that way, but also wildfire smoke directly crosses the blood-brain barrier and causes inflammation and can worsen mental health directly that way.
And in terms of mitigation, if somebody can't move, if they're, depending on their circumstance, what are some steps they can take to try to relieve some of the impact of wildfires?
Well, in your home, you can, for example, keep your doors and your windows shut during smoke events and also run air purifiers. If you have to head outside, wear an N95 mask, and then avoid worsening air pollution inside your own home during smoke events. So, in fact, not burning candles, avoiding vacuuming, and avoiding using your gas stove because that puts air pollution right into your kitchen. And then around your home, if you live in a fire-prone area, keeping flammable and combustible materials away from your home, planting fire-resistant shrubs and trees. There are lots of good tips, actually, on different websites online. And then last but not least, a lot of us can work together societally to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels because that's driving climate change, which is worsening wildfires. So there are so many things we can do on many levels to prepare ourselves, but also evidence does show that when we make a plan and when we prepare, we feel less anxious about wildfires too.
And that helps physically and mentally.
That's right.
All right, Dr. Melissa Lem, we appreciate your time and expertise as always. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.
There's a live shot of the Port of Vancouver. Not an eclipse-friendly day on the South Coast, but the sun is set to peak out tomorrow. Karis Hogg will have your BC-wide forecast right after this.
What is a henna, basically? Henna is made out of the leaf of a plant. They take the leaf, they dry it, and make it into a powder. So we take that powder and we convert it into, you could say, icing. And we use that icing to draw on people. And then it leaves a beautiful stain on your skin that can last from 4 days to 2 weeks. Now, the problem with these cones is the henna itself does not have any shelf life. If it's created naturally, it doesn't have any shelf life. So what these companies do is to extend the shelf life, they add chemicals into these cones, which are really, really dangerous for your skin. One of the things that they add is the kerosene oil. Yes, the thing that we put in our cars. So because of the chemicals in it, if you're using those chemical cones, you can absolutely get a reaction from it, even if you're not getting a reaction today or tomorrow.
So when you heard about this Health Canada warning, what did you think and what did they say?
Personally, I was very happy about it because we have been asking Health Canada to do something about these cones for a long, long time. And you would imagine that, you know, if something is being sold in Canada on the shelves. It must be safe, right?
Right.
It's not really, no.
No. So this crackdown is welcome by people who are doing it
yeah,
right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
How regulated is the henna industry in Canada?
It is not regulated. That's the whole issue. It is really hard for them to regulate henna itself. So that's why it is important to let the consumer know what is it that they should be looking for when they go out and get henna done. So we're approaching the summer festival season as well. We're going to see a lot of henna in those festivals. So it is really important that you be asking these questions. Is it natural? What did you put in it? Did you make it yourself?
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. CBC Vancouver returns as the exclusive media partner of the Doxa Documentary Film Festival May 2nd to 12th. Enjoy thoughtful and engaging documentaries, special presentations, and industry events. For festival program and tickets, visit doxafestival.ca and never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter and keep connected with us.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Kara Sog is here with our BC-wide weather forecast, and what a fabulous day to not see an eclipse, at least on the south coast.
Yes, that's right. Really, much of BC was fairly covered in cloud. But yeah, I mean, the south coast, it was beautiful. Rain, lovely rain. We love
dozens of drops.
So many drops of rain, which we need the precipitation. So that's wonderful. But, you know, it didn't really line up to be great eclipse viewing weather, that's for sure. Taking a look at the satellite and radar over the past 12 hours, you can take a look here. And this is about when, you know, at about 11:30, this is kind of when the eclipse was happening. There's a lot of rain that was coming in on Vancouver Island, and also snow into the central interior as well. But taking a look forward now, the precipitation forecast, we are still going to see precipitation on the coast and then into the central interior, but it will taper off into Wednesday. For much of the province, actually, it looks like Wednesday will be a fairly clear day. However, before that, I want to let you know about some highway alerts. On Trans-Canada Highway from Rogers Pass to Eagle Pass, there is an alert, a snowfall warning, about 10 to 20 centimeters expected for tonight and tomorrow afternoon. Again, more snow coming. And for the Coquihalla Highway tonight into tomorrow, there is a snowfall warning as well. Quite a bit of heavy, wet snow expected near the summit. So be aware of that if you are traveling on those highways. But we can take a look at some daytime highs for tomorrow through the province. We've got chance of snow, Whistler tonight, and then also a little bit of chance of snow for Golden tomorrow. Those are very normal highs for this time of year. And now we'll take a look at Metro Vancouver and our 5-day forecast. We've got Tuesday afternoon, tomorrow clearing. It looks like the sun might start to poke through, and then we'll see that on Wednesday as well. It looks like back to a chance of showers on Thursday, and then drying out again on Friday and Saturday.
Okay, Karis, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
And that is your late news for this Monday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Good night.